This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've either seen the premiere of Season 7 or you've had it spoiled for you by someone who has. And if you don't watch Game of Thrones, you really should give it a try. There's nothing quite like watching your favorite characters get killed in the most brutal fashion. But beyond the hype the show generates, it's full of little details that seem to be in such contrast to reality. And that's part of what makes Game of Thrones so interesting. An enormous wall of ice built to keep out barbarians and ice zombies, 3 enormous fire-breathing dragons, a fleet of 1,000 ships, and countless others. But despite how fantastical these elements seem, they each have at least loose parallels in reality. Let's start with the Wall. Stretching almost 500 kilometers along the northern border of the Seven Kingdoms, this massive 213-meter-tall fortification of solid ice was supposedly constructed using both magic and manual labor about 8,000 years before the show takes place, in the aftermath of what was called the Long Night, to defend the realm against White Walkers. Most people in the Seven Kingdoms, including many of the Night's Watch until recent events, believe the White Walkers to be a myth, and see the Wall as more of a barrier to repel the fearsome wildlings who live in the frigid north. The Wall is undoubtedly enormous, but the real world has an equally impressive counter. While not nearly as tall as the Wall of Ice, reaching just 5 to 8 meters high on average, the Great Wall of China is much longer and built for a similar purpose. Not keeping out ice zombies, but the possibly equally terrifying Mongolian hordes. The main stretch of the Great Wall is a staggering 8,851 kilometers long. So while you'd have to stack about 26 Great Walls on top of each other to reach the height of the ice wall, you'd have to place almost 18 of the ice wall end to end to match the length of the real world's most impressive wall. Next, let's look at the mighty Iron Fleet. The Iron Fleet, the military arm of the Ironborn's massive assortment of vessels, was initially just 100 of their largest longboats. This number dwindled to around 61, and when Euron Greyjoy killed his brother Balon and took the throne, Yara and Theon fled with a sizable portion of the remaining fleet. Euron then ordered the construction of an additional 1,000 ships to hunt them down and prepare for war. Let's just ignore the fact that the Iron Islands couldn't possibly build that many ships with their limited supply of lumber, especially not within the time span of a couple months. That's not what we're looking at. Does the gigantic Iron Fleet have a real-world parallel? If we restrict our comparison to the part of history with similar technology to the Game of Thrones universe, the most direct comparison would be to the Persian Empire's navy under King Xerxes I in 480 BCE. This was the largest fleet in history until the US Navy in World War II, and numbered 1,207 ships in triremes alone, not counting the thousands of smaller vessels also involved. Xerxes raised his fleet in an attempt to crush the Greeks during the Second Persian invasion of Greece between 480 and 479 BCE. On paper, it looked like an easy win for the Persians, who outnumbered the Greek navy by some 900 ships. In the bloody naval battle that ensued, the Persian fleet was too large and cumbersome to maneuver in the narrow straits in which the battle took place, and the Greeks scored a decisive victory. Euron Greyjoy's fleet is formidable, but look what happened to the Persians. It just goes to show that greater numbers don't necessarily mean anything if your enemy is prepared. Or has 3 dragons. Speaking of dragons, let's take a look at these giant fire-breathing monsters that are so prevalent in mythology around the world. In Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen is lucky enough to raise 3 dragons from tiny hatchlings to their current monstrous size in Season 7. According to one of the show's directors, Drogon is the largest and is roughly the size of a 747. Assuming that's not a gross exaggeration, that would mean that Drogon is 70 meters long and has a wingspan of 64 meters. Besides size, dragons have several other notable features that you wouldn't expect to see in real life. First, their wings. Unlike birds, dragons have leathery wings, most similar to a bat, that are used to lift their massive weight off the ground. Also, unlike birds, their bones are usually assumed to be solid and very strong rather than hollow. Finally, the typical dragon is depicted as being able to breathe fire. Are there any creatures in real life, living or dead, that come close to these traits? Well, yes and no. There's not any single creature that has all of a dragon's characteristics, but it might take fewer than you'd think to get the whole combination. About 68 million years ago in North America, there lived the largest flying creature in all of history. It was called QUETZALCOATLUS, and it shared the dragon's capacity for flight and some of its massive size. The Quetzal had a wingspan of about 16 meters, and stood at least 3 meters tall when grounded. This impressive beast is estimated to have weighed between 200 and 250 kilograms, a considerable amount for a flying creature. While the Quetzal probably would look like a dragon in flight, it lacked some key features. Most notably, a reptilian body, teeth, weight, and the ability to breathe fire. That brings us to the other half of our real-life dragon. This is Megalania, the largest known terrestrial lizard to ever exist. Ancestor of the Australian goanna, monitor lizard, and the Komodo dragon, Megalania lived during the Pleistocene era, which means it coexisted with ancient humans and could have been the origin of dragon mythology in some parts of the world. This deadly reptile fit common depictions of dragons to a T. It was giant, had strong limbs, a crest between the eyes, and a large, fearsome jaw filled with serrated teeth. But what really makes it stand out as a real-life dragon is its incredibly corrosive venom. This venom was fatal, and 10 times more powerful than that of a Komodo dragon due to its size. It would cause wounds that looked like severe burns on its victims, which likely sparked the fire-breathing rumor. If only Megalania had had an evolutionary need for wings, and they were somehow powerful enough to lift the beast off the ground, we could have had true dragons in real life. Whether any creature could ever naturally develop the biological mechanism to breathe fire is doubtful, but you never know. But really, we can all agree that it's probably a good thing the real world doesn't look more like Game of Thrones. While I was researching for this video, I got to check out some really cool Game of Thrones fan sites. There was everything from news and rumors to behind-the-scenes clips from crew members to fan art and more. Seeing all these different sites made me think how cool it would be to build my own Game of Thrones speculation site, because I'm pretty sure I know how the show is going to end, and I want to be able to say I told you so. If I did make that website, I'd definitely choose Squarespace as my platform, because I've built other sites with their sleek, award-winning templates in the past, and it really couldn't have been easier, even for someone with no website design experience like me. Squarespace is a professional, super user-friendly platform with nothing to install, patch, or upgrade, so all you have to think about is what you want your website to be. It's perfect for your own fan site, blog, or even your business. Visit squarespace.com/secondthought to save 10% on your first order. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to keep up to date with the latest content, and press that little bell under my channel name to be notified every time I release a new video. You can watch my previous video by clicking here, or if you're really bored, you can watch all my videos by clicking here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.